Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another podcast. The Ascension of Lawrence, right? Now, people who follow Insecure and, they follow my reviews of Insecure, over the years, there's been, one of the things I've really paid attention to was Lawrence's storyline, right? Now, previously thought it would be complete because, they did the fake out and said his character wouldn't be on Insecure this year. But that was a total fake out. Oh man, I kind of like the fake out. But I was looking at it because I was this isn't a formal review of the latest episode of Insecure, but more about his progression from basically a nice guy to Mr. Goodbar, right? Because on the show the other night, right? Issa ran into Lawrence in the 7-Eleven and she said, "Hey, so what you been doing these past, what have you been doing?" And he thought about it, so we get the flashback, We see him having sex with a woman on a couch. We see him like doing some good things on his job. We see him at the gym, a woman check him out, all of a sudden she riding him, right? We see him and Chad at a bar, and I'll get into that bar thing in the formal review of the episode. And you see a bartender check him out, right? All of a sudden he's doing her doggy style, right? Now there was some bad parts because he caught chlamydia from somebody, and then had to get a shot, and then had to call these women up and say, "Hey, I had chlamydia and all that." And it was a funny part. Like, he called up one woman, hadn't even had sex with her. He had been out there going crazy. Now, I know some people who detract from Lawrence, they'll say, "Oh, his dick is about to fall off or something." And you know what? That's part of the game. It really is. It really is. And I don't think a lot of women are in a place to really talk about that. Let's just be real, right? Because a lot of these guys catching some stuff, they ain't catching it from another guy. So anyway, right? And that's something, and actually that is part of that's part of the game. But if you look at his progression, I would think, I honestly, when I was watching the show over the past seasons, I would sit there and think, wow, I wonder if a writer or something has seen my book. Because that progression is something that is really at the base of what I have in my books, Nice Guys and Players, Sexual Chemistry, Meeting Attractive Women. I was thinking about the original version of that book, right? The base of it is transformation, like actual physical and mental transformation. That's what Lawrence went through. Think about when we first saw him. He was just some bum sitting on a couch, not doing anything, hadn't worked in a while. I mean, we didn't know about his educational background or anything. But basically, if you look at him and you look at what my categories of men, he would be categorized as a nice guy. He really, even though he had the educational background, he didn't have, because he had failed to get his app off the ground, he was just there. He didn't have that get up and go. And he didn't have that energy. He didn't have that swag. And then that was a big reason why Issa didn't want to fuck with him. That's a big reason why Daniel came into the picture. She wanted some sex. Because really, a man's sex drive is strongly connected to what he's doing in life, because it's part of his confidence. Like, if you want to kill a man's sex drive or something, take his job away from him, take his resources and everything. You can't really separate the two. So you had Lawrence, he was doing that nice guy thing, and then he gradually built up. But then in building up, right, of course he encountered Tasha. Now Tasha, Tasha might have had some physical attraction for him, but part of it is she probably saw where he could go financially, so he was more like that masked man. The masked man is the guy, he has some sex appeal, but he also has a lot of money. And Tasha, she was at 87 octane trying to climb up. So, part of her thing, she gonna look at a man because of her ambition. She gonna look at a man partly for his earning potential. So she saw him as that, wanted to move up and everything. Yeah, she did have some sexual attraction for him, but as I say, the masked man is a combination of sexual attraction and money attraction. She probably saw where he could go. So she, part of that was potential, right? So he was still rising. But then you get to that final level as far as sex appeal to a woman, what I call Mr. Goodbar, right? That's the guy women throw themselves at. Now you saw part of the transformation. You saw part of the transformation with him running into, these two white women, right? But you couldn't say that's a total thing because they were kind of on some fetish thing anyway. So he was just a tall black male, right? And probably in their eyes, he wasn't even probably the best black male to get with, right? So they were on some fetish thing. So that was part of the journey, but another part of it was hooking up with Arpana. I believe that's her name, who the Indian woman in his office. Now, part of that, too, was probably part of the masked man thing, right? Because, he had a certain position. She thought he was hot. But, of course, there were some issues. And it'd be interesting if they show, like, them still interacting this season. Like, if she's still at the office, how's that working out, right? Because one thing with her, she probably ain't going to deal with some bum dude, She probably ain't going to, the money part is still especially going to be in there, especially when you deal with women from certain cultures. Part of a man's appeal is going to be his financial standing, his status and everything, right? So you had that. Now, of course, he had, I guess, the closure with Issa at the end of the second season, right? So it's like, boom, we get to the latest episode, and they show what he's been doing. This dude was getting women off of looks. And when I say not just how he looked, but they were just looking at him, they chose hard. He just gave that look like, yeah. And it's like, boom. Now, even though someone would probably bring out, oh, he had chlamydia, it was like, pfft. Well, unfortunately, that's part of the game, too. That's part of the game. Also, you could sense he was getting kind of weary of that lifestyle. Because that's anybody who wants to jump into that lifestyle, look. And I've said this before in a video. You don't mess with that many women without getting at least one pregnancy scare. You could probably go through a lot of women if you really discipline with a condom. But every now and then you can go on a wonder. If there's a slight discomfort, you're going to be like, So you're going to be like, is my shit clean? Because you can't. The law of averages, if you mess with enough, you're going to get something. Or some crazy woman, something. You're going to get some negative thing. And that's one thing I found with a lot of guys who get pussy thrown at them like that. In fact, I say I have a portion of my coaching clients are guys who don't need help getting women. They need help trying to transition out of that lifestyle. Because plenty of people want to be at that point, and I'm quite sure plenty of people saw it. But once you get up there, it's a different vibe, because then it's like, oh, damn, is this it? But it's interesting. That's a progression. But I'm going to tell you what, though. It's not a bad progression, because then once you get to that point where you can get 20 women in a month, you realize, hey, maybe I need to focus on quality. And then you start breaking it down. And then I think that at that point, honestly, that's when a man can really appreciate a really good woman. And I think that's when he really reaches that point where he can become a superior man when he can have enough discipline to turn down sex. And that's different from some guy who ain't getting sex. Let me make that clear. Some guys just ain't getting sex and think they're disciplined. It's like, no, you know you're disciplined when women throwing it at you. You don't have to do anything, but you can still say, nah. Right? So it's an interesting thing. Now, where they take it from here, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see and to pay attention to. All right. But that progression, I mean, it's almost textbook. It's almost textbook, and it to the extent it mirrors what I write about in my books is it really does make me think somebody who's connected with the writing staff or on the writing staff knows about my books. Seriously, it's that deep. I'm like, wow, that's an interesting progression. Because even how he got to Goodbar status, right? I remember paying attention to that during the second season when he was still living with Chad. And, you know, he was in the gym working out and everything. Because at first, he was just sitting on the couch at first, but then he started working out. And, you know, anybody who follow me know that's a big part of my program. I'm like, get your physique together. In fact, there's a little secret there that I don't share. People on my private site know about it, but there's a secret there why a person really should deal with their physique. Why they should probably focus most of their energy on their physique. There's a little secret there. I think a handful of people know it on my site, especially if they attended a certain webinar. Right? So don't ask me. If you're in the comments, don't ask me. I'm not going to tell you. So if they paid for it, y'all got to pay for it. The game is to be sold and not told. But when I saw that, when he was lifting and everything, I was like, all right, he making that transition. And it is a progression. It really is a progression. And he actually skipped over one of the progressions, which is the gamesman. That's a guy who's just playing that numbers game, trying to run some game on a woman. Not like the game in terms of the way I use it in terms of the word knowledge and stuff. And you can't even call it strategy. Like some guys just outright lying or something. Just doing whatever they can to get theirs. So he skipped over that part, but the progression was there. He went from the nice guy to the masked man to Mr. Goodbar. It's a very, and to me, it's a very valuable lesson. It's really, to me, because you have a lot of men who are trying to self-improve. It's probably it really is a visual representation of what a man needs to improve, not just for women, but in life, period. Because, yeah, he getting all the women, but at the same time, you notice his confidence level is up. He doing his thing on the job. And, I mean, he's really doing it. That's how it's supposed to be. So, boom, there you go. The Ascension of Lawrence. Oh, as far as the shot thing, like I said, fellas, just wrap it up. That's a lesson. Wrap it up. I don't care how sweet that woman is or whatever. I've personally known some very sweet women who at least had herpes. So anyway, wrap that shit up, y'all. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and blessings.